Okay, so the 4. Resistance pattern, non-trusting, stingy, and lack of abundance. So essentially, a person with a 4 goes through experiences in their life where ultimately they realize, or they come to the belief that they can't trust anybody, ever. That everyone's always got a hidden motive, hidden agenda, and that they just can't trust anybody because they're always going to get hurt. And also, there's this distrust of people, and then there's the distrust of the universe, the higher power. And they've had these experiences where perhaps they felt abundance, but then it was taken away, and there's never long-term sustained abundance. So it develops this distrust with the world and the universe as well. And then that can create a stinginess of like, well, I just got to hold on to what I got because I don't know if more is coming. And even if it does come, it's probably not that much. And so what happens, they start getting blocked to more. They start blocking the flow of abundance because they're not continuing the energy on forward. So it's like a vicious cycle. So it's ultimately, one of the original words for this is barren to fruitful. So it's not having anything, and barren is like you think of like a barren wasteland, like there's nothing growing and there's not going to be anything growing. Like it's just barren, it's done. But ultimately going to fruitfulness. And in today's words, that means prosperity, abundance. So how does a person get there? Well, they get there in their genius talent by not just blindly trusting everybody and everything. And I think that's a misnomer, especially in certain communities where there's a lot of emphasis placed on trust. And trust is an important thing. It's a whole theme of this. But it's properly trusting. And that's why the specific word there is properly trusting. Because guess what? We all know there's people in the world that are not trustworthy. They're not only not trustworthy now, but they probably never will be. And this isn't to just blindly trust. This isn't to, be on the side of a highway with cars going back and forth, like 4-lane highway. This isn't about walking to the other side and just being like, oh, I'm just going to trust. No. This is properly trusting. And this is music to people's ears, usually with this as well, because it's what we've all known. We all known that, some people you can trust, some people you can't. But it isn't a zero-sum game. It isn't, okay, I can either trust everybody or I can't trust everybody. This is all about developing your own way of discerning how much trust to give to a person at what time. It's a very dynamic thing. So if you think about it in percentages, giving your full trust right away is like, okay, you have 100% of my trust right away. Okay, well, no, trust is earned, or it ought to be. So it's like, okay, well, trust is built over time. Trust is built over multiple steps. Trust is built over evidence of actions. And you can give people the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't mean that the person with the 4s is always, like distrustful and just like, oh, I can't trust you. I'll give you this one thing. No, it's like, okay, perhaps discerning, okay, this is a person that feels also trustworthy. And so it's also about becoming trustworthy yourself first. So you unlock that vibration in your body. And as you become someone who can be trusted in yourself, it becomes easier and easier to notice when others are not in that vibration. You're literally picking up what's going on in their subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind is connected intimately to our body. And our body, we're a vibration. The atoms at a molecular level are vibrating. And it's vibrating in sync to our subconscious mind. And so when you get a feeling about somebody, your body And subconscious is literally picking up the vibration that's going on a molecular level that's representative of that person's subconscious mind. So this is about starting off with people that seem trustworthy as well, but then not stopping there, understanding, okay, this person seems trustworthy. Okay, one box is checked. Now, let's give them steps over time. And if it's not, it just really depends on the scope of the relationship. If you're going to do a phenomenally big business deal, like, okay, there's going to be some steps of building trust there before, just jumping off the deep end with that person or that organization. And understanding that if there are red flags, not just speeding past them, being like, okay, assessing what's the red flag and making judgments based on there. It doesn't mean the whole thing is lost. Sometimes, it could be just speaking to that and allowing a person to make amends. Or maybe there really was a miscommunication or something like that. Or maybe they are just full of shit and you just call them on it. Okay, well then at least a couple steps into it, as opposed to being, off the deep end with them. And so that's why this becomes very powerful for business and duplication, because it's somebody who's very trustworthy themselves and understands who to do business with, when to do business with them, and in what scope. And that creates a relaxed energy in the body. It unlocks the rigidity in the body, because otherwise in the resistance pattern, it's this very clenched, rigid energy of like shoulders up, looking around their shoulder because they're just waiting for the next person that's going to break their trust. And as you learn how to do this, then become more relaxed, because you have your own system of who to trust and you're not blindsided. And it's just like the relaxed warrior. If somebody has never practiced martial arts and they're in a competitive situation, they'd be very tense. But the more someone has practiced in martial arts, the more proficiency they have, that actually the more relaxed they are. And what's fascinating is that the more relaxed a person is, the quicker they are to reacting, the stronger they are, the more fluid they are. That's why in pro sports, that's why in martial arts, is that there's this thing called relaxed intensity. That's when a person is performing at their best. They're very dialed in, they're very focused, and there's a relaxedness which creates power. And that's the paradox here, is as you develop your own system and you relax more, it actually makes you more effective and more quick at spotting the signs of who to trust and who not to trust. So you become acutely attuned to the flow of abundance. And a person who is in the genius talent of these fours, it's almost like they're like a surfer, they're like knowing when to ride the wave of abundance, and how to hop in between these streams. So it becomes a person who feels very insecure, in the resistance pattern, it's somebody who at first feels very insecure about everything in life and not trusting that anything will be there for them, which makes them very self-centered and hanging on to what little they feel like they have. But as this happens and they start to learn how to trust, and they have evidence of like, okay, of who to trust and when to trust, then it becomes easier and easier to flow. And then it becomes easier to share. And that's the thing. Share resources, share money, share time. It becomes easier and easier to share the abundance that they do have because they're more relaxed, which then the universe and other people bring more abundance to them. So they start opening up the pipe of abundance. So you can imagine, like before, the pipe is very clogged. It's just clogged with fear. And then as it opens up, more and more abundance flows through, and it becomes easier and easier. And then it, instead of a vicious circle downwards, it becomes an empowering spiral upwards of knowing who to share, when to share, and then just more keeps coming, and there's a trust, and it just feeds on itself. And that's why you have the mastering the flow of abundance. And that's why this becomes very excellent for business, really anything, because it's a person who's got the ability to take what's there and duplicate it and replicate it and share it. And they're doing that in the big ways and also doing it internally in the small things, in the small and big things, externally, internally. So it's the great ability to absorb and control a lot and manage a lot and duplicate a lot. And ultimately, somebody who's very connected also to the higher power and their mission. Because you can also look at this like there's these cups and the water is the abundance. And it's flowing and it just keeps building up, and then you share it, and then it keeps going, and it's always overflowing. But you need to keep the energy moving, because if it gets clogged up, then it starts disappearing away. It's like the more that if it isn't shared, it's like this door opens up and then the water just goes down. And then it's like, oh man, we don't have anything. Then you got to cling to more, and then it just gets clogged up. So it's good to, as it fills up, okay, let's share a little. And then more comes in. And then share a little. And it just keeps flowing more and more and more and more. Also with this is that there will come leaps that a person has to do in their life. It can be small or big, but essentially the resistance pattern is like, hey, you can't take any courageous leaps, because if you do, nothing's going to be there. People weren't there for you before, and you're actually going to lose everything. I mean, at least you got a little bit right now. So there comes times where a person is in the fours and it's like, so there comes a time where you will have a decision, and it happens multiple times in a person's life. So it's like you feel in your heart that you should take a leap over here. But at the same time, it looks like there's these snakes down there, like what happens if I don't do this? And there's massive mistrust that essentially your heart is leading you in the right way, something that you need to do. So what's important is to follow that and know that this is just part of the pattern, to leap over. And as long as you're following your heart, the GPS in your chest, things will work out for you. I'm not saying that it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows, but this is ultimately the genius town of the four. And sometimes it takes a few times. I'd like to say that it's just, one and done, but sometimes you need to hop to a second one, and then sometimes a third one, and then you're over to the hump. But as you do this, it becomes more and more easier. And as you do this, it just becomes more and more clear to you, like, okay, I know I'm supposed to take this leap, and it's not even a leap anymore because you've done it so many times, like similar scenarios. And this is a person who is able to just make these moves to always stay in the stream of abundance with whatever they do. And it's fantastic. Okay, so that's what we've got for the four. I'll see you in the next video.